This is a Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black 2B. Let's put it to the test while drawing a robin on Strathmore 200 series sketch paper. Hey everyone, I'm excited to share my latest piece, this robin drawing, but full transparency, I messed up. I forgot to hit record on the video camera. However, my studio microphone was running the entire time. So for the next few minutes, you're not getting a polished voiceover, you're getting my unfiltered, in the moment thoughts as I drew this. Tangents, the self-critique, and the genuine feeling of working with this incredible pencil. Let's dive into the raw studio experience. I am drawing a robin, and he has a very interesting beak. I've never used, by the way, this pencil, so thus the video. I want to see how it performs. Looking for his shapes that I can identify, his big old chunky football looking belly, the S-shaped body here, looking where I want to place everything. I usually start with the head, because then I know the feet and stuff will follow, so let me just get an idea. And now I'm going to construction draw with this, and I'm not sure how it's going to go, so let's just find out. Well, after a good start there, ain't we? I'm breaking pieces of lead already. All right, so we're gonna go like that. For his beaky beak is right here. This is a little exaggerated. His beak's a little. I didn't realize their beaks were this long. Kind of interesting. I mean, relative to his body size, it's a pretty big beak. One of the challenges of this too is I've never drawn a robin, so this is an interesting choice. I just picked birds because they are kind of timeless, not just to draw, but like, you know, as animals. I mean, they're whatever theory you subscribe to. They've been around for a very long time. So I'm just gonna sweep his body underneath him. Just trying to get his basic shape, and then I can worry about tightening everything up. The funny thing about their feathers is they get to be really, they can be kind of difficult to draw because there's so much going on, but try not to get overwhelmed with that if you're following this for any reason, to sort of draw along with me, if you will, which is kind of the idea, you know, or if you're watching, you're listening, whatever. I appreciate that. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking as I'm doing it. His feathers kind of come down like that. So I'm just trying to get the basic shape, the overall shape of his feathering and not the individual feathers, just so that I know where I'm at. So far this is interesting because it's a it was pre-sharpened, but it was kind of blunt sharpened, which I actually usually like, and so I'm using it as it is. A little bit of a kind of a fur-like texture on their nose. It's almost like the fur that they get when they're little chicks and they grow up and they grow into their feathers, but they still have some of that fur left. That's what it looks like to me. That's how I think of it anyway. I don't know if that's really what it is. I am no avian expert, okay? It's just a small chicken, let's be real. So this bird's feathers is what I was trying to say, are a little more, or his wings, I guess, his winglings are a little bit smaller than what you might imagine based on the size that he is. He's standing on sort of what kind of looks like some kind of evergreen. I don't know exactly what he's standing on. Not necessarily the point. I make him a big old fat bird, by the way. I might be exaggerating him a little bit. That's okay, because I can do that. I can't see his feet very well because of this picture I'm referencing, and I'm gonna just kind of use that as an excuse to draw his feet like that. So they're not quite that wide, but that's all right. I'm kind of exaggerating him a little bit. Let me get some of his main stuffs down, like his eyeball. That's roughly right. He has like some of this white stuff coming off top of his hair and here. What's funny to me too is that these two B's that are really heavy. I don't mean heavy in graphite, not physically heavy. Very rich. This feels more like almost like a pastel. I'm gonna throw in some texture in his feet down here in a minute. Anyway, I grabbed this on a whim and I just thought it would be interesting to try because it was really soft. I did try it in the store real quick, like just marked it on under his seat to see how it would be, and it was really, really soft, like a Prisma, or like I said, like, you know, pastels or so. I'm just curious if I can get Mr. Bird to look something like what he looks like in this picture. There's a lot of like orange brown in here and very much blacks with some shininess to them. I'm just taking liberties to do this part. All this section up here is black. This is all brown, but there's a lot of like layering of different shades. So I'm just going to kind of scribble them in for now. Just trying to get an idea of how this pencil is going to behave, and I'll give you my opinion on how it feels in the end. But as I'm drawing right now, it is very, very soft feeling. It's very forgiving, but I thought it was going to be much blacker looking versus, you know, darker looking than what it actually is. Surprisingly, it's not quite as dark as I imagined. I don't know why. I guess maybe because it's this black casing covering or finish or whatever you want to call it. I'm looking for patches of stuff to shade in, by the way. I'm not going for all the little details of his feathering necessarily. Again, this is just meant to see how this pencil will behave because I am but curious, because I wanted to get some idea of this one. I got a couple other ones I want to try. I'm going to try them on different paper so that I have something to baseline compare it to when I do actually get those black wings. I do have a lot of pencils. It's not like I don't use a bunch, but I just wanted something a little darker that would compare to it. So I got a few other 2Bs, just kind of scribbling his texture down here. And I'm looking really heavily at the reference right now because I've never drawn a robin and not sure what he's supposed to look like. This is what he's going to look like. Sorry, dude. Yeah, he's got a bit of... I'm going light too, by the way. Very, very light. I could go really hard on this, but much like burnishing with a colored pencil, if I do that, I can't go back. Not very easily anyway. So I'm just trying to get some of this down first before I go any heavier. Because the black is going to be as far as I can push this pencil. You know, I was shocked to find the other day, and I don't know everything when it comes to drawing or anything. I was really, surprised. I was really shocked to find out that there's all the way up to 12 Bs, which I didn't know existed. I'm a pleb. What do you know? I don't know nothing. I just knew that the highest I had was like a 6B at one point. Kind of hatching here. But anyway, they go up to 12, 13, I think I saw one day. At what point does it become a charcoal pencil? It's no longer just graphite, is kind of the question I had. So he's very striated, and I'm just going to give hints of that because I'm not going to do him any justice if I try going in with every detail. He does have this other little part of his wing, you know, the way that their wings fold, like almost like their elbows, for lack of better words, kind of like this. I'm just interlocking those feathers as much as I can. I've drawn a lot of birds, but it's funny. There's so many avian varieties. I cannot say that I have drawn anywhere near as many as there are. You know, I've drawn like eagles and stuff like that. Eagles, mountain chickadees, but no. Also St. Lucian thrasher I've drawn, and a St. Lucian parrot I have drawn. I don't know. I started to draw. Oh, I did draw a duck. Yeah, that's true. I did draw a duck. See, I forgot. So he's got like this indentation where his sort of his shoulder joint is. That's what that is there. In case you have wandering, there is some patchiness of his. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. There's some patchiness here of the coloring of his little scale. I want to call it scales. His feathering. One thing I think too, a lot of people don't realize is if you just learn to draw, like I know I say this all the time, but if you learn to draw basic shapes, it will help you draw basically anything because that's all anything is, the way that we see it anyway, us human beings. It's got a nice grip to it. This is just sketch paper. I'm interested to see how this is going to behave. I have some other paper, some Bristol that I bought, which I intended for colored pencil, but now I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to behave on that as well. This has a really nice grip, almost bite to it where you're drawing. It's very controlled. I was actually kind of expecting this to slip and slide all over the place because of how soft it is, but it is quite controlled for what it is. So I'm just trying to build up as I go and building up as much texture as possible. The darkest part of him is right in here that I can see. So I'm going to push this a little bit. I'm just kind of scribbling this in a little to keep some of that texture in there. And I am constantly looking at back and forth at my reference. I'm going light and hard. I'm kind of pushing and pulling. I always say it that way because that's how I think about it. Pushing and pulling like you would if you were sculpting. I don't know if you guys have done any 3D sculpting or actual modeling, clay or anything like that. And even like Play-Doh or something, you know, when you start, if you wanted to build something in Play-Doh, you just kind of slowly push it until you mold it into what you wanted to see. At least that's what I think of when maybe it's just me. Maybe, you know, who knows? Who knows? What do I know? There's like very, very tight interlocking feathering, if you will. Very small. It's almost like hairs on the side of his face here. So I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to follow this little thing, this little patch down into his face. Kind of disappears back here. And there is some shading in here. I'm only using this pencil. I'm not using an eraser if I possibly can. That's always a fun thing to do. When I was in drawing class way long time ago, we were told we had to get sketching pencils with something with no eraser, and we were not allowed to use an eraser as a rule. Not like you're going to get in trouble and get thrown out of class or anything, but just like you get marked off for it, because the idea is much like drawing with a pen. It's not very forgiving. If you want to get better and push yourself, just put your eraser away, because if you erase, you're going to sit there and erase and try to correct little micro mistakes when really your eraser should be like a kneaded eraser for highlights. You want to pull back on your graphite and that kind of thing, or map out your like I just did there. You can map it out so you can kind of leave some of that white. He's got some things going on up here. It also teaches you like how to set your values, you know, like if you're using nothing but gray, or in this case, you know, graphite, I'm saying, it kind of teaches you to see the value difference. And I think that's why pencil's nice. I mean, just kind of almost scribble like I'm doing here and then blend out kind of like that. I'm trying to get some of this in here and high spot some of it. Yeah, this pencil's really interesting. It's like I said, it's soft, but it's not as smearing as I kind of expected it to be. I get some of this in there. Oh, there we go. This is dark here. Sketching is just putting marks on paper, but drawing is more about refining what's in front of you. Like if you're using a reference, drawing is more finished, that's for lack of better words. It doesn't have to be realism, but just more like a quick sketch is to lay down the idea, right? And, you know, it might be messy or whatever, but a drawing is a little bit more refined. It's designed to try to emulate whatever you're looking at, or to push the form a little further than what the sketch was, versus say like the, you know, drawing with the pen and just doing everything you see can be very useful. I feel like just from a drawing perspective, if you want to get better at drawing, it is useful to draw with a pencil now and again. Now there are some really good artists that don't need to do all that, but they figured out what works for them. I'm just saying, if you're new and you don't know what you're doing, and let's say you want to learn color and stuff, if you that helps you to practice with this sort of the gray, the black and the gray. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense. My wife usually tells me like, yeah, that makes sense. So I'll wait and see what she says. All right, he's getting a little fuzzy. All right, cool. I just want to get some shading in here, and very, very, very lightly. This, by the way, this again is a 2B. I'm using one pencil. I'm just trying to see how far I can push this and still feel like I'm hitting semi-realism, leaving some of these values in here, give him some texture. Drawing is just practice, like pretty much like everything. I'm gonna just give him some blades of some pine needles that he's sitting on. This is not meant to be picture accurate. I'm just being lazy about that. Okay, that's not the important part. Our subject, our guy here, that's what I care about. I'm gonna smudge this up a little bit because I'm curious how more I can push it. Oh wow, that's kind of, yeah, you definitely want to use a fixative for this. If you care about your drawing, it'll lift. Whale there, I mean, he kind of more or less looks like a bird, right? I don't know how much he looks like a robin, but I've never drawn one before, so there you go. Yeah, guess that is pretty good. Just gonna smudge him up a little bit. That was like my favorite thing back in drawing class, was to be able to smudge stuff. Once I figured out, like, I mean, I didn't realize it was a valid technique, you know, like to just like wink. We started doing it all the time. That does want to lift though when I do that, so a stump blender might be better. Stacks well, and it is again the Mars Lumograph Black 2B Staedtler. I mean, good stuff. It is like it's almost charcoaly feeling. Like, it doesn't make as much mess, obviously, as charcoal, but it kind of like the graphite seems like it's sitting on the tooth of this paper more than it is like getting down in there, which could be a good or a bad thing. It's interesting to try to get a gradient or a different shading out of one pencil. I could probably push him a little further in his shading down here. Crossing up changes the tooth. It grabs different parts of the tooth of the paper. Just FYI. And scribbling's nice for that too, because it gives a different texture. All right, I think that should do it. My final thoughts on the pencil is it's good. I can't say that I don't like it. The only time I've ever not liked the pencil is if it doesn't erase well, or which it did, or if, and especially for a 2B, this erases nicely, or if it breaks when you go to sharpen it, or when you use it, the lead falls out, which that didn't happen here. A piece of it did break, but that's whatever. Not a big deal. So if I sharpen it, I can tell you, but I have no intentions of doing that until I've used this a while. I have other drawings I'd like to do with this first, but my first thoughts feels a lot like it feels like a traditional drawing pencil rather. It does have rounded hex edges. The thing across the barrel says 2B all over it on every side. And well, that's pretty cool. So that way it doesn't matter which way it's laying in there, you can see what it is. It looks sleek. It's got the serial number on it too, in case if you want to replace it. Pretty cool. I like it. Hopefully you like it too. So I'm just putting them in grass, I guess. Whatever. Nobody really cares, right? I would say that and let me sign it. Check this pen out. I got this. These are all on sale, so I got them together, and I got this Pigma Sensei. Check this out. It is a chisel pen. I very much like it. Check it out. Kind of cool. Look at that. Look at that hot mess. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.